So there are a lot of factors that make up a great golf shot just like that. You can see ball first, ground second, contact, compression, distance, all that beautiful stuff that you like to brag about to your mates.
I don't brag.
That's not what I heard. So one of the big reasons you're able to get compression is because your connection with the club allowed those wrists to hinge and then unhinge into the golf ball,
Yep.
right? And Scotty Scheffler, recent gold medalist at the Olympics and world #1, does a lot of work on his grip, his positioning of his hands on the golf club, specifically where he positions it relative to his fingers or his palm. So I want you to talk about, when you teach players cards, what do you do to ensure that players are gripping it in the fingers and not the palm?
Well, it's probably something that's not spoken about enough, is it really? Because I mean, the only relationship you have with the golf club is when you hold it. And the most common one that we see is when this trail hand, the right hand for right-handed golfers, sits in the base of the grip sits in the palm, and the hand closes. So when I look down at this golf ball, I can see the fingernails in these fingers, but then I can also see my left thumb, which I do not want to see.
Big time, big time. So if you set up to this ball here for me and you mimic that, right, we can really see from this face-on view a lot of thumb being visible.
Yep.
That actually also gets your right hand, your trail hand here, under too much, and you'll notice the inside of your elbow crease and your palm is going to face in the same direction.
Yep.
Now, for you to have any hinge or load on the golf club is so challenging from that position. And you can see instantly what happens to the club face cards.
It closes.
It closes. So you're going to have to make all sorts of compensations from that position to try and match that up and not hit it around your left ankle, right?
But also, because of the positioning of the wrist, the natural place for the club to want to go is very inside as well.
Yeah.
So we see that a lot. Once the right hand goes under, like you say, limited hinge, closed face, inside is a disaster.
And very commonly in the comments of videos such as this, they'll say, well, what about Jon Rahm? He gets that lead wrist bowing early, the club goes in, he's got a really short swing. Well, you're not built like Jon Rahm.
No,
I'm not built like Jon Rahm. We don't have the skill. I wish we had a quarter of an iota of the skill that he has.
Yeah.
But he's done that his whole life, and he's an incredibly skillful athlete. So even though you might see variations of this on tour, it doesn't mean that that's the easiest way for you. And there's a reason that there is a functional pattern and a little bit of a process that is commonly taught out there. It's because it gives you some benchmark that you should work with. And essentially, having your hands sitting on the golf club in such a manner where they're actually in the fingers and not the palms is going to encourage a more fluid and functional backswing. So now let's talk about a great routine that any player can use. And I love showing this to anyone that I'm working with online, purely for the fact that I've yet to see any player really get this wrong, as opposed to a lot of other methods. Now, I'm sure you've seen this one here, which is still very beneficial, where you just simply hook the index finger around the base of the shaft and then on the underside, preferably, of that front hand. And then that would encourage, more often than not, through the fingers. But what I do see players do is they just start putting their hand with a logo facing up towards the camera there, then their index, and they're not actually hinging it correctly. They're overcompensating by bending their arm, and they'll go, hey coach, look, I'm doing it. But then before you know it, it's actually going directly through the palm and not in the fingers. So this is key. The other method that you might see, like an Adam Scott, you'll see them put the club behind them, and then they'll grip it in the fingers, bang it up and down. Great, assuming you don't have it in the fingers in this direction, where you're actually putting your lead wrist under. Okay? And if I then set up to the golf ball, I might be able to hinge it up and down using my elbow from behind me, but I set up, now I'm not going to be able to do that. So Karts, if you set up to the golf ball there, I'm going to show you the best way that players can use to grip the golf club in their left hand. So what I want you to do is stand up and face the camera in front of us like this. You're going to hold it up, put your right hand up here for me. Great. Now you're going to get your left hand, and you're going to pretend there's a big stop button in front of you. You're going to push it like that. Great. And all you've got to do is make sure your palm hits the club before your fingers do. So big stop button, palm, and then what you do is you very lightly wrap your fingers on. Now you're in this position, where does it feel within your hand?
Feels like it's deep down in my fingers.
Yeah. And for a lot of players, the first time they do that, if you have a look, and I am facing this camera, very much lining it up with this section of that front hand, so that nice squishy bit, and then wrapping the fingers on. It is so important in the address position. You have a coupling of this lead wrist, because that's going to allow you to create some hinge, which allows the golf club to move upwards in the backswing so it doesn't swing too far from the inside, and control the golf club. It is just simply way too easy for players as they try and put their hand on, maybe get the logo of the glove facing up towards the sky, to still put it through the palm. So this way of holding it up in front, pretending you're pressing a big stop button, and then wrapping your fingers around, if you were to do the simple grip check that everyone does, well, then you'll see it's going to be under the right section of the palm, which is super important. Now, as you do that once more, mate, perfect. Put your left hand on, great, and right hand back on the club. We're going to see from the face on that this is all covered up. Now, the way that Andy has done that, if you let your right hand play dead off the club, perfect. And as we then swing that back on, naturally, you're going to see it's going to want to cover it. So if you're a player who, if you just let your right hand hang off the club and you're naturally like this and you let your right arm play dead, the way that we're all designed is to have a bit of this internal rotation of that right hand, that right forearm. So if you're like this, you just let it play dead, lightly swing that puppy back on, and you'll find you'll be able to close that gap nicely. Anything you teach players to do in regards to that?
Same as you. I always try and get, so you've got the crease down the middle of the palm. I always try and get the side of the lead thumb going into there as like a little reference point.
Hot dog in a bun.
Hot dog in a bum.
Yeah.
It's like that's why it was created. It sits right into there. And then, like I say, when you look down, you can't see your thumb. And that's the key, because the majority of golfers do come in like this. I don't understand why. It's not very comfortable. But it's like I say, if you let the arm just kind of hang completely naturally, and then you can just kind of close your hand. And again, this is something you can practice without a golf club. I often just say, I said to one of my online students recently, use your left thumb as the shaft of the club effectively, and just get used to putting this right hand over the top and just letting it sit into there consistently. So every single time you're comfortable in the way the hand is delivering itself onto the club.
Yeah, and there's a reason you see a lot of professional golfers take the golf club up in front of them like this, is because it's a lot more difficult to get it wrong than it is when it's on the ground. In all sorts of terms of orientation of the palm, and also how you position the hand through, let's say, the fingers and so on and so forth. So set up to the ball, mate, go through that little process, give me a big stop button press, then put the right hand on by swinging it in, perfect. Love that, down in, right arm plays dead, love that, off we go. Just like that.
Thanks for watching this video. YouTube thinks that you would benefit from watching this one next. So click that card and it could be the tip that you need to